Okay, I have 7 o'clock. Let's call this meeting to order, please. If everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Losina.
Present.
Butcher.
Here.
Kraszewski.
Here.
Frieders.
Nay.
Wilhauser.
Here.
Rulis.
Here.
Peterson. A quorum is established.
Any amendments to tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we do have a presentation, employee recognition, appreciation of service for Dixie DeBoard. So listen, Dixie, if you would please come forward. And you have some words for
I'd like to welcome the additional staff and their family and friends that are with us this evening. Tonight we are recognizing an individual for her years of service with the city. If you were to look in the dictionary under the heading of exemplary employee, you should see Dixie DeBoard's picture there, for she's an employee that serves as a desirable role model and is the best of its kind. Dixie started part-time at the Yorkville Library in 1999 and became a full-time employee on May 2nd, 2003. She is the head of technical services and a member of the management team. She is responsible for the ordering and processing of all of the library materials, but oh, she does so much more. She is an integral member of the Friends of the Library and helps with all the logistics on a daily basis for their annual book sale. She fills in throughout the library when we are short-staffed and is the first person we call when something in the building breaks, as she is a jack or a Jill of all trades. In 2017, she served along with Shelley Augustine as the interim director after Michelle Pfister, the library director, retired. She donates her personal time to do the library landscaping and make sure the plants around the library are maintained. It's very obvious to those of us that know her that she's a devoted employee that loves her job, and it is a significant part of her life. She's always upbeat and optimistic to her coworkers and the general public. Confucius says, choose a job you love and you never have to work a day in your life. And I think that's Dixie's philosophy. I personally want to thank her for all of her help during my first year as director. We are so fortunate to have Dixie as an employee of the library, and tonight we recognize and thank her for her 15+ years of service to the library and the Yorkville community. And we also wish to thank Larry, her husband, for sharing her with us. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
We do have a small memento of our appreciation. Read that to you from the United City of Yorkville. A grateful appreciation for your 15 years of dedicated service to the United City of Yorkville, Dixie Award 2003 to 2018.
Thank you.
Now, I'm sure, Dixie, do you want to say anything? I mean, I know you've seen a lot of changes over the
I
years.
appreciate the recognition, and it's been a pleasure to work at the library, and I still enjoy my work there very much.
We'll see what we can do to change that.
Did we want to bring Larry up for a picture?
Sure, come on, Larry. I've had him up here.
Okay. So we go from that to, we have a public hearing on Prestwick of Yorkville for a proposed special service area, 2019-1. So we'll go into public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to say anything about the proposed SSA for Prestwick? Hearing none, we will close that public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry.
A little slow on the uptake, as you know. My name is Amy Sessage. I live in Raintree Village, which was an SSA and is still. And I think I stood up here at one point and said, please don't ever do an SSA again. So I hope that that is still true, that we're not going to do that. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in because, you know, I have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Amy, is it okay if we close public hearing? Sure. We will close public hearing on that and open public hearing for the tax levy. I believe we do have a brief presentation.
Okay. I'm Bart Olson, I'm the city administrator, and tonight is our public hearing for the 2018 calendar year property tax levy. And so these are property taxes that you're going to pay in summer. The 2 policy questions this year, one, does the city want to capture any new construction or inflation? So that's under the tax cap law, the only dollar amounts that we can levy over what we did last year. And then 2, do we want to continue to levy the city's property taxes and the library property taxes separately? So here's a little overview, number-wise. So we've got the 2017 city levy, so that's what we actually received last year, and what we're proposing as published in the public hearing this year. So again, this dollar amount is more than we expect to get, and we publish that way so we can have a conversation about any tax levy amount below that dollar amount. And here's the library levy as it was levied last year. So again, we are talking about the capped portions of the operations for both of these levies that go to fund operations, not the bonds which were approved by referendum, or in the city's case, the non-abated property taxes from a few years ago. So we've got 3 exhibits in your packet. One is the first tax levy for public hearing. So again, this is an inflated dollar amount, so more than we think that we're going to get. It shows a 7.7% increase on the city's line item and a 3.9% increase on the library property tax line item, for increases of just under $250,000 and just over $50,000. Again, we aren't necessarily recommending that dollar amount, but that's what we've published in the public notice in the newspaper. Exhibit B is if you were to levy for every dollar amount under the tax cap, what those dollar amounts we would expect to be. So this would be in the case the city says, we want to levy last year's dollar amount, plus any new construction value that we've received in the past year from all the new homes going up or businesses, and the inflationary dollar amount under the tax cap. So if we add those 2 together, we would expect 4.5% more property taxes than we got last year, for a total maximum of $142,000. The library's 4.5 ends up equaling about $30,000. So Exhibit C is what we've actually recommended at a staff level and what the library board has adopted at their level. So the city staff recommendation is to levy for new construction only. So theoretically, if you're an existing homeowner and your property value doesn't change from one year to the next, even though we're asking for more money, we're capturing that from new construction only, you shouldn't see your city portion of your property tax go up. And the library property tax line item, they did ask for construction, new construction, and inflation. So there's that 4.5% increase or $30,000. So of note, within the property tax cap in Exhibit B, we anticipate that we could ask for $142,000 more than we got last year. We're only recommending for 2.4% or $75,000. So that $65,000 could be used for any purpose under the sun, hiring new police officers, building roads, et cetera. So it's just something to think about when we actually approve our tax levy ordinance here in the next month or 2. So just a couple notes again on the library. They set their own levy by law, so we can't change it. All we can do is force them to fit within the same rules that we do. They are tax capped with the maximum rate, which they are expected to be under. We subjected them to a separate calculation last year, so we're proposing to do that again this year. So they did approve a dollar amount that was $725,000, which is far in excess of what we expect them to actually be able to capture. So they are in essence saying we want every dollar under the property tax cap, and so they'll ask for more than they think that they can get, and then when we apply the rules to them and the county clerk does all the certifications in April, they will knock them down to whatever the property tax cap maximum is. So that's the library's point there. So they've added new construction and an inflation dollar amount plus some additional to get every dollar under the tax cap. So again, the two policy questions are, does the city want to continue the practice of levying separately from the library, which we've done for the past 2 years? So we're applying the PTEL tax cap law to the library. And then two, does the city want to capture new construction only, which is the staff recommendation, leaving about $65,000 on the table. Exhibit B would be to levy new construction and inflation, so that's $142,000 more than we got last year. Or go back to our old habits of saying we're going to actually ask for more than we think is in the tax cap so that we capture every dollar under the tax cap law in the future. So again, our staff recommendation based on what we did last year is Exhibit C. Just some quick things to remember. Police pension is part of your property tax. So last year we were lucky, in fact, I think our police pension property tax amount went down $3,000. First time that's done that in several years. This year we weren't so lucky, it went up 15%, $148,000. So that eats into our corporate levy. So we're actually losing money for general corporate purposes because we're pushing more towards the police pension property tax. So, and then additionally, the average EAV increase citywide is 6.76%. So if your home goes up more than that percentage, you're probably going to pay more regardless of what the city does with their tax levy. If it's about the same, it should stay about the same. And if it goes up, even if it's below this dollar amount, should remain flat or maybe even decrease. We only make up 6% of your entire tax bill, so the library is a separate line item. We're not part of the school district, township, county government, fire protection district. And this is the third year in a row that we've not collected any non-abated property taxes, which we are set to discuss at admin next week. Additionally, when we were levying for non-abated property taxes to the tune of a couple $1 million a year, we communicated a property tax reduction plan. So prior to fiscal year 15, it was actually reduction amounts in the double digits for a few years before that. So we communicated a 2, a 1, a 1 reduction, and then an increase last year. We actually sped that up, so we reduced it faster, and then collected new construction only last year, which is what we're proposing to do again this year. So next steps, this is our public hearing. There will not be a vote on the tax levy ordinance tonight, so if anybody has any questions in the public or comments, we'll take those into consideration for the next meeting. And then we do only have 2 city council meetings before the end of the year, which is when the tax levy ordinance has to be filed. So November 27th or December 11th. If you have questions after the meeting, my contact information is there. Otherwise, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. Does the public have any questions or comments on the tax levy? If not, we will close the public hearing. Are there any citizen comments on items that are on the agenda this evening? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carol Sheely, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, but with the heavy stuff you people have to deal with, this is probably kind of minor. So I appreciate you taking the time. I want to start out with a little bit of history in mentioning Parkview, if you are familiar with Parkview. The public was told many years ago by the superintendent that the state had declared it unfit to house students. And truthfully, his purpose was getting a referendum passed so we would build a new school, which the numbers showed we needed it anyway. So the school district vacated it. Right away the next year, Waubonsee College held classes there. And it seems to me like they're under state regulations too. So it certainly was fit for them to use. After that, the school district went back to using it for 5th and 6th grade. And when they were done with it, it was sold at auction, but fortunately rebought by a very caring and generous person. That person had it re-roofed, maintained it, and it took 4.5 years to find the right use for it. And if you go by there now in the daytime, you see the kids out there playing and it's full of life, rather than being abandoned or torn down. Next, I would refer you to the old Kendall County Courthouse, built in 1864. When they moved to the new courthouse for the county, it appeared that a majority of the county board members favored either unloading or demolishing the courthouse. They put out RFPs, they had many offers. All those offers were pretty shaky. It took tons of work and a couple years for citizens to be able to call enough attention to draw attention to receive federal and state grants, which is what saved the courthouse. We probably never could have raised enough money, but by attracting that, and now you look at it, and everybody in town is proud of that courthouse, and thank goodness it wasn't sold to somebody who wouldn't use it properly or torn down. I think they would have had to dynamite it. The original walls are like 2.5 feet thick. Fast forward to the chapel on the green. That was built in 1855. When the congregation built a new building, there again, they needed more room, more numbers. Then in about 2010, it was abandoned by the Kendall County Historical Society, who had been using it. But because of a very active citizens group, that building is now quite viable. It's on the National Register, and it too is full of life. So how about the old jail? Built in 1893. I've got some figures here that I learned from attending these meetings. That roofing would be $17,000, asbestos removal about $18,000, lead abatement about $27,000. So we're up to $62,000 there with just those items. And an expert has told Landmarks of Illinois it is in repairable condition with very healthy bones. And I think those walls are pretty thick too. In 2010, the city received the jail as a gift from taxpayers. Unless we think that state grants drop out of the sky. I think it comes from our tax dollars because they were state agencies. And I know, Mr. Funkhauser, you had said that the city has not put out an RFP since you've been on, which is the last 7 years. And I think the years prior to that, probably the reason there was no response was that was during the big financial downturn. So that's why nobody responded. But right now, the city's looking for space and the county's looking for space. I don't know the status of your municipal facilities plan, but you probably couldn't even buy the land you'd need for that $62,000 for remediation cost. So I would hope that either the city or the county would have the vision to step forward and use this gorgeous old building as they provide services to us, their residents, and the owners of the building. We, the taxpayers, are the owners. What would a new building cost for either this city hall or police station or whatever, versus reuse of existing space? How long would a new building last? I doubt the 125 that we got going on that jail building. And how would the quality of the new construction compare? And I hope you'll give this real serious thought. I think it's definitely worth saving for the people who own it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any other citizen comments on items that are on the agenda this evening? Last call? Okay.
I'd like to ask you guys if we can backtrack a little bit to the SSA, that wonderful thing. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Would you mind, I'm Brian Payne, 1604 Shetland, some of my neighbors. Can you just kind of go through the process of this SSA? I know the fundamentals, it's a segue to pull money out of us in case the HOA were to collapse, whatever. But can you kind of explain, you know, the $1.10 per 100 assessed? I know it's the maximum you can take. How does that work? What do we expect if it were to crumble, and how much are you gonna take out of our pockets, you know, for that?
Barry, you want to tackle it?
Yeah, so that money would not be assessed unless the homeowners association or whoever the developer is at the time that has obligations for maintenance of the common areas continues to do their job in maintaining it. So it's known as a backup SSA. You know, usually the detention basins, entrance monuments, parkway trees, beautification within the subdivision is a responsibility of the homeowners association or the developer until you know, the homeowners association takes over. So we put those in place to protect residents in the other subdivisions in town in the event that the homeowners association does not maintain those items.
All right, so I know you guys break it out as $1.10 per 100 of the assessed. So that's the maximum. Is there full, you know, disclosure here? How do we know that you guys don't just say, hey, we're taking the $1.10? You know, how does that, do you guys go out for bid, or
Yeah,
does that all work?
we would have to pass a budget and a tax levy for your subdivision every year in order to do so, which requires its own notice provisions, either on the agenda or some can require a public hearing. Other than that, you wouldn't have any authority to vote on it. You wouldn't have any say in it formally.
Right.
You can come petition the city council for whoever gets done, but there's nothing to prevent the city from stepping in to levy those taxes and provide those services if the homeowners association is not.
Doesn't hold up their end.
Correct.
So when you break down you know, you guys kind of break down retention ponds, I get all that. But now you start getting into conduits and sewers, and so I get that's our subdivision, common areas, that's all good. But my taxes are probably paying for sewer work in other parts of the town.
No, it would have to be within the subdivision.
Right. But what I'm saying is that we were in countryside and we didn't have any of this. And I'm guessing that everybody paying taxes, if my sewer broke, it was probably getting fixed out of the pool of taxes.
Sure.
Why would we separate certain set areas of conduits, lighting, drainage under something that every subdivision has, like countryside, but doesn't have it?
Sure.
This.
So there's other sections within the ordinance and then within the like the procedures that would allow us to do it. That it wouldn't be for if your sanitary service line broke on your home.
Oh,
It
right.
would be if for some reason your subdivision had like a sewer within the right of way that was owned by the homeowners association. And off the top of my head, I don't think there's any.
Okay.
So it would only be for commonly owned elements. It wouldn't be for any private.
Okay, understood. So basically, when you guys actually accept the subdivision, because I know that hasn't happened yet, but when that takes place, common area lighting, or street lighting, I should say, street lighting, sewers, sanitary, storm, I should say, all that'll be under the normal realm of things, right?
Correct.
As it would be anywhere else.
Yeah, this would not cover like the installation of new sidewalks
Right.
or, you know, putting in trees. It would just be if the developer, as the homeowners association, or the homeowners association once it gets formed, decides to do something that's commonly owned.
Right.
If you fail to maintain that in the future,
That
then
would
we would
pick it up.
step in.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Ms. Sesich.
Bart, no. Please tell these people how the SSA has worked in Raintree Village, really. Because I cannot believe you guys are even entertaining thought. I mean, I realize that these things have to come up.
Let me answer this.
But this, I am like reeling, so somebody tell me what's happening.
It's the SSA that I have in Wynn that you have in Raintree is different. When we bought our property, we knew we had $20,000 that we had to pay off on our lot, or whatever the SSA was set.
Right, because it wasn't built into the home.
Correct. This is kind of like this is like the SSA we had in Sunflower. It's a backup SSA.
And did that work out for Sunflower?
Well, that's my point. That's why I'm pointing out Sunflower. Because Sunflower's HOA went defunct. They disbanded, they didn't take care of their subdivision, and if we didn't have a backup SSA, we wouldn't have that option to then basically become their homeowners association. To tie into the question as to you asked, how do you know that we're not going to just max out on you and take all your money? I think the proof is in the pudding. In Sunflower, we don't max out. We take what we need to do the ponds, to do the mowing contract every year, and we just assess it like if we were their HOA. So they're two completely different things. This is not an SSA that we're approving where every homeowner is going to have to pay us $20,000 on their lot. This only gets if the HOA drops the ball. And thankfully, we've only had one. Two.
Fox Hill.
Oh, Fox Hill, that's right. So we've only had two in Yorkville that have dropped the ball, and we've had to pick up that ball. If we didn't have the backup SSA, then basically the entirety of the city would then be responsible for that subdivision.
Are there some builders that come in here, though, that don't need an SSA?
It is our
And
policy
why are
now
you
that-
considering?
So we have a policy.
We now have a policy that every subdivision is going to have a backup SSA in case because in the past we've had developers disappear. And that's why we have it.
The city has not approved an active primary SSA, which has been the
Right.
cause for concern in any subdivision since it was set.
No. It's
Okay.
completely different.
Because I'm freaking out over here. I asked you, we stood up here and said, no, don't do it again. And you guys are, I'm like back there going, oh my gosh, what is happening? So for the people that have never dealt with an SSA, I mean, it's obviously the way ours was built, it's a nightmare and we're being screwed over all the time. So people that have actually paid off their portion of the SSA have more value in their home than the people that have not, or can't even refinance because we've lost the value and can no longer put that SSA tax into our home.
We are on the same page when we agree that primary SSAs are the devil.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This is not a primary.
You're so lucky, Carlo, because I was like, what are you doing?
I know.
I was already going off. So, and I was going to go off on Bart too, so he's lucky. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I appreciate the clarification because, I mean, obviously I was going to lose my mind over here if you guys were actually going to vote on it. Thank you.
Actually, I think in the upgrade, the developer took it over and they actually bought out the SSA.
They paid off the SSA.
So they got rid of that.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's definitely in your best interest if you have an HOA to maintain it,
Yeah.
become part of it, and maintain control of your subdivision.
If you want more information, the Caledonia from was it last year, the year before, that's a small subdivision just behind Boomba. And they had the same freak out. But like, see, I didn't have an SSA in my neighborhood, I had the bonds, and they didn't have the bonds. So either way, both ways that you're supposed to be protected, you can still get screwed. Every investment that you make is a potential opportunity to get screwed. So the backup SSA, just make sure that we're not paying for your monument sign as a city, the people who live within that neighborhood, into perpetuity, maintain all those common areas and that monument sign.
But the typical SSA is a special service area
Yeah,
tax.
that's why if you
for
go
all
back
of
to
your
the minutes,
trade-
I said we should come up with a different
It
word.
should be a
Different
different-
backup SSA. I suggested Nancy. Not from anybody named Nancy.
A backup Nancy?
Like, it's not threatening, it's not threatening, it has some authority, but like SSA is a bad word. But it's a special service area, so that's why I suggested Nancy.
We'll call it a save or something, it's not an SSA then.
Right, so backup SSA.
Okay, any other citizen comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting, October 9th, 2018, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions, or corrections on minutes? All those in favor of approving minutes as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to mayor's report. We have an appointment to the park board. I'll entertain a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Rick DeVries to the park board to a vacant term ending April 30th, 2021.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Coe,
Aye.
Butcher,
Aye.
Reuters,
Aye.
Turles,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Machuski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Oswego for the sharing of governmental affairs services and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
I'll move.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Coe,
Aye.
Butcher,
Aye.
Reuters,
Aye.
Turles,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Machuski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to authorize entering into a one-year insurance agreement with American Alternative Insurance Corporation, Gladfelter, for property casualty insurance in an amount not to exceed $171,569. To authorize entering into a one-year insurance agreement with the Illinois Public Risk Fund for workers' compensation insurance in an amount not to exceed $171,179. And to authorize entering into a one-year brokerage agreement with Mesro Insurance Services in an amount not to exceed $19,000.
Second.
Comments or questions on insurance and workman's comp renewal? Roll call, please.
Butcher,
Aye.
Reuters,
Aye.
Turles,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Machuski,
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title III, Chapter 3 of the Code of Ordinances, creating a new liquor license class and fee, sports complex, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So move.
Second,
Comments, questions?
I have a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as far as the liquor licenses are concerned, I have no problem issuing this liquor license and coming up with a new class for the sport complex. I'm going to vote for it. But that does tie into kind of what we talked about at our goal setting on Saturday morning when we set our goals. And I thank all of you for putting the police staffing as the #1 goal, because this directly ties into things like this. I mean, obviously, we know where there's sports and there's alcohol involved. We've had issues in the past in some parks and things like that, and that's par for the course. I'm not saying this is going to be any different. But with our current staffing levels, the more we grow, the more activities we have, the more liquor licenses we have, we need those officers on the street. We cannot function with 3 officers on the street. We need to get our numbers up. So I will support it, but this is just another notch in the argument that for next year's budget, we really need to consider adding those 4 officers, and maybe a 5th, because obviously we had a retirement. So whatever we can do to get our average up to the national numbers would be highly appreciated from a public safety point of view. So I will vote for it, but keep that in mind when we're preparing next year's budget.
And like you said, with that being our #1 goal, our goal-setting session on Saturday, we should be seeing an action plan from staff in the near future. Any other comments or questions on the liquor license? Roll call, please.
Reuters,
Aye.
Turles,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Machuski,
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Butcher.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances regulating on-street parking, Autumn Creek Boulevard, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions?
I have a quickie.
Yes, sir.
Everything that Carla just said about alcohol, I'm going to put on top of this one in front of Autumn Creek.
Yep. Not that we're sending alcohol to Autumn Creek, but
But it might be.
we need more officers
It might be a good idea.
around the school of Autumn Creek when the kids get out, yes.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Turles,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Machuski,
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Butcher.
Aye.
Reuters.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I'll entertain a motion to approve an ordinance regulating the weight of trucks on certain roadways in the city and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions?
Everything that Carla
Same thing.
said. So now that the cops are doing all of this work, we should probably get some cops.
You know, we used to have a truck unit years ago when I was prosecuting in Kendall County, and Yorkville was on top of it. They would weigh those trucks. It was right. And those citations are significant for overweight citations. And it's not about the fine coming from the citation. Is that these trucks are violating the law. They're ripping up our roads, and it's a cycle that we get into. That you got the heavy trucks, the roads, then we got to fix the roads. So once again, we can't have a truck unit because we're understaffed. That will help with this as it would trickle down to everything else. So I think I've got my message across, and I think we're going to have some positive movement on that front for the next budget.
Anything else on that one? Roll call, please.
Lucian,
Aye.
Mountcastle,
Aye.
Krasinski,
Aye.
Coe,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Trullis.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing the 10th amendment to the annual budget for the fiscal year commencing on May 1, 2018, and ending on April 30, 2019, police admin vehicle purchase, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Yes, sir.
We're making this amendment for the purchase because right now it's not something that's budgeted, but the additional funds were just under $8,000 that are deficient right now, but we're speculating that through development fees, this is going to come to fruition by the end of the year. I think most of you know I'm not keen on a lot of the budget amendments, but this is one. It's speculative. We're hoping that these funds come in. If we have something economically that's going to stop development fees, we've seen it. I don't think that's going to happen, but then we're going to shuffle funds around to do it. We're not talking a huge amount of money. It's not like we're talking 3 cars, but is there a rush for this vehicle right now? I mean, I know right now we got a lot of vehicles that are in rotation, but do we have an absolute need right this moment for this vehicle?
There is, in that our purchasing manager called and she was originally looking for used vehicles to try to save some money. We figured out that because it was the end of the model year, that there were people actually selling new vehicles for under the state bid price, which is what the quote from Westfall is. And so I think this is the last one on the lot. And so we were looking to grab this since it was under state purchase price for the first time.
Is the current vehicle we have is being traded in, is that correct? Or no, we're just going to sell them? I don't think it, I saw that there was some type of rebate, but that's not a trade-in on this.
No.
So we're just taking this as a, that vehicle will be used for some time before being disposed, or is it going to come off the streets from our admin uses?
We're just short vehicles in the admin section right now. As far as the amount of detectives and administrators that are driving vehicles, we just don't have vehicles. So this isn't a trade-in on a.
So we need to add one to the rotation on the admin. Do we know how many we have right now? Because that's one thing I know we don't see that report very often about the vehicle list for the PD.
5?
Probably got 5.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a huge amount. I'd balk at it more if it was, 50,000 if we're looking at a full outfitted vehicle, but the fact that it's not that much, I'll take the chance on speculative budgeting for this issue, which is not something that really,
Anyone else?
Over here.
Yes.
I guess I'm just kind of confused on this one because when we left here Saturday, I counted 12 squad cars sitting in the lots. Just sitting there. So I don't understand why temporarily, while we're down staff, we're not using those. And there were just 12 cars sitting there. I counted. I'm like, whoa, look at all the cars sitting there.
And those vehicles get driven by 2 officers at a time. We've had several vehicles that were down for maintenance with computer issues. We had 3 new vehicles that were getting pushed into the fleet. They were replaced. 3 other vehicles are going to come out. So that's currently where we're at with that right now. So that's why there's sometimes obviously vehicles sitting in the parking lot unused.
So some of them are not usable?
They are, just
to a degree.
Yeah, they're in states of repairs, cycling them out of new vehicles, especially with computers. We're working with the IT department to get the computer issue worked out right now. But obviously, a lot of those vehicles are driven with 2 officers inside the vehicle. They're running most of the time, so they get a lot of hour miles on them.
It just seemed like a lot sitting there Saturday, so I was kind of confused why we needed another one.
One follow-up for this type of an issue. In the past, we've had the vehicle maintenance logs that we've reviewed, monthly. I know back when we were looking holistically on our budget, we had the overall vehicle maintenance schedule, which I think Rob had put together. Some of that has kind of gone to the wayside in terms of upkeep of that listed maintenance. The last time we bought a couple of squad cars, I asked for the list and it had not been updated for several years. At least what I requested, it was not updated. So I just think it would be good for planning purposes for us to make certain that that list is up to date. And I would say that for all vehicles throughout the city, that we're constantly evaluating our fleet of vehicles so that we know what we have and we can actually see which ones are in rotation, what is not, and what's our expectancy of vehicle life.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Stalkhazer,
Aye.
Shinsky,
Aye.
Coe,
Aye.
Fletcher,
Aye.
Peters,
Aye.
Turles,
Aye.
Plesman.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we have no Public Works Committee report. I will turn it over to Alderman Coe for Economic Development Committee report.
Okay, motion to approve a resolution approving an economic development consultants agreement and authorizing mayor and city clerk to execute. Second.
Comments or questions? Yes, sir.
I know this is, we've got a month and a half before this contract comes up, and I sat through the Economic Development Committee meeting when this was discussed. Staff is making the recommendation to continue with the land, and I know the question was brought up with, we had looked at other options at that point. It was conveyed that they hadn't because they felt that this was the best option for us. Looking through this, I know Lynn has great connections. She's got a lot of dedication to this, and she works very hard on this. I was a little disappointed that we hadn't explored other options for these services. I want to make sure that what we're getting is the absolute best for the city. We've seen improvements in some of our economic development in certain areas. Some we haven't had success where we want to, such as the grocer, and I know those are difficult. We've got some very high aspirations for development. But I think what I want to see is us look a little bit, is this the best option that we have for the resources that we're getting? We're using Lynn, I've seen her hours in terms of what she puts in. She's required for a minimum of 15 hours a week. I know some months she's really heavy on hours and some she's right at that number. But I just want to make sure that what we're going to spend $100,000+ on is the absolute best. We have some goals we want to achieve, such as the growth around the south side, industrial and manufacturing. We want some increases there. So what I'm getting at here is I want us to maybe put a pause on this contract and take a look at, is a Buxton or a retail coach, is a consultant, or is there the opportunity for a full-time person? I just want to explore the options here and make sure that we're not going to jump into 3 years again without at least doing the due diligence and making sure that what we're doing with the $100,000 is in the best interest of the community. That's where I want to kind of start this conversation if we could.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't disagree with Alderman Funkhauser more. It's not a 3-year commitment. She has a 30-day out, we have a 30-day out, just like we did before. I mean, those what I call big box EDC companies, like the retail store and all those things, I mean, they serve their purposes, but nobody knows Yorkville better than them, period. I think she's been our #1 cheerleader at EDC. She's always on the ball. She's always updating us. She's constantly making contacts with people all over the country to promote Yorkville. And I think she's done a yeoman's job of needing to charge to bring businesses into the city. If you want to look at alternatives, in addition to Lynn Services, I'm always open to marketing our city. If things turn for the worse, we each have a mutual 30-day out. But I think we would be cutting our noses to spite our face here if we did not keep Lynn on board and keep her promoting Yorkville. So I would be supporting it.
I agree with Alderman Colosimo. I think Lynn Services are invaluable. We're in constant communication. I think the things that Lynn does for this community, we would not get out of anyone else in Buxton or any big box EDC type corporation. Yeah, the things that Lynn does is just phenomenal in my mind. The contacts she makes, things that she does behind the scenes that we don't even see. You know, and I know, you look at her invoices, and I know for a fact she puts in a lot more hours than she bills for, without a doubt. Yeah, I would definitely support the contract. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with both opinions. And the thing I would add to it is, I remember when we did the tourism bureau, that took almost a whole year, if I'm not mistaken, of staff time and a lot of staff time. You guys spent a lot of time with different ideas. So I think that to try to say you're going to do something in a month and a half, that doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a rash judgment. So I mean, if you want to take the time throughout the contract, you can do that. And I think that Lynn offers an ability that someone who wants to negotiate to bring a business in town, that person sometimes doesn't feel free enough to come into the city and talk to us directly. It's kind of a bridge getting here. And I have also a feeling, because she's only a one-person company basically, when you bring in these other companies, you're going to pay for administration in our company, you're going to pay for their advertising, that's all going to get watched. I think you're going to be surprised with the number that comes back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, agreeing with the previous three. Having been dipping my toes at work into this type of kind of business in the Aurora area, it's not what you know, even though what you know can go a long way. It's who you know and who's going to vouch for you. And I think that's the one area that you can't pay for. So we are, paying for your services, but you literally cannot put a dollar amount on someone else's faith in someone to, just call Lynn. So just call Lynn is something that we could actually just kind of remove a whole bunch of red tape out of the way and just call Lynn. Because a lot of the questions that I have, not only can she answer while she's driving in between meetings, but everybody knows that you can just call in. So
She doesn't use her phone in the car. She actually pulls over to the side of the road to take calls. We know that for a fact. We know that for a fact.
But the fact that number one, she's accessible, number two, I know for a fact that you're not billing for every single hour that is actually done for the betterment of Yorkville. But honestly, to have someone in Yorkville that you can, just call this person, that took decades to create that type of reputation. So I don't think that's something that I would ever consider getting rid of in a month and a half. And it's also like when you're saying, well, why weren't we looking at alternatives? Well, the reason they weren't looking at alternatives is that they were actively working on bringing new businesses in. That list that we got today, open, under construction, open, under construction, that's enough of a business card for me, at least for another 3 years. So.
And the couple that closed, there was something, she found another company to come in and take their spot.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I think Lynn does a great job, but I do think, from online we're saying, you should do your due diligence and look at other options. I know that I necessarily want to do that in a month and a half, but I think, we have to back up this $125,000 a year. Yeah, anything else would be going up that for this kind of money? Other than a full-time employee. I mean, I don't see that voting no today is the right option because we do need somebody in the midterm. I think, we owe it to the citizens to at least look at other options. And so they have something to compare it to.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess one thing, and I was a proponent of, I was kind of with the tourism board. I'd like to see what I'm getting for my money. I'm sorry, that's how it was brought up. And it's not that I don't see what I'm getting for my money. I appreciate the information you get, but sometimes it's just kind of blurred. And I think it is a lot of money, and we're the stewards of our tax dollars. You know, we're talking we need 2 police officers or 5 police officers, whatever. This is a lot of money that we are spending. I guess I'd like to see more bang for my buck on it from Lynn. Something that came up, you had mentioned, Chris had mentioned Saturday about like more information on our website. You know, why, you know, we've had this 3 years, maybe that's a way to get stuff. I guess I'd like to see a little bit more for, was it $145 an hour to, you know, that maybe Lynn could administer or have more information out on it. You know, she doesn't have a website. How, you know, I guess I want more people to know we're here and to come in, not just, hey, call in. And it's kind of up there with the tourism. I just have a problem with the money that's attached to this. Maybe we do need to look somewhere else and we don't have the time to do it now. So maybe we should consider that we only do a year contract and in a year look, and then if everything's good, Lynn gets another, 2 years on it. I don't know if that's an option. If that would appease that we could go out and look and, maybe we'll find out Lynn's is, we are getting our bang for our buck.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think one of the parallels to the AACBB discussion is that before we were asking for more bang for our buck, we should be getting more. We couldn't define it. So that was when we came up with, all right, well, what are the KPIs, the key performance indicators that we're going to come up with that we're going to base success or failure on? Maybe that's a discussion that we can have in EPC or admin to figure out, okay, what are we evaluating her on? Because if we're going to go through each of the, whether it's the expansion of Wrigley or the new dance studio on the south side, or any of the other things that are like the hotel or the banquet facility, if we're going to go through each of those, what are we going to base the success on? Is it the number of sales tax dollars that we generate because of the business? Is it the number of people who are going to be getting jobs? Like, rather than saying this isn't enough and not having it be able to base it on anything, let's have an actual discussion on what are the indicators that are going to say she's doing a good job. Because I can look at this list and read the paper, and it says new business, new hotel, new banquet facility, new dance studio, all this stuff. That to me is success. But if you're trying to base a decision saying that we should be getting more, well, let's find out what we're getting for $1.45 and break that down. And then you can use some funky math and figure out what each hour of her time is worth. Once you can base something on an actual number, it's really difficult to kind of say, well, that's just not how I feel, because you have numbers to back it up. So the same AACBB discussion we had.
And I agree with you. I told Bart, I'd like some more empirical information here. Like what are these businesses bringing in? Maybe let's base it on sales tax versus, so what is there a way to tell what these bring in? What's the lump sum of sales tax versus what we pay out for the service?
And a lot of that
and
stuff
maybe
is-
we're doing great on it. But to me, I don't have that empirical information.
12
to
types of
challenge me.
numbers.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, I'm not saying you're not doing a good job. I don't see the numbers, I don't have solids to go on, and that bothers me when I have to spend that kind of money. But I do that, that's just how I am. I do that in my personal life, like weighing everything out. Now I'm doing it for the taxpayers. So maybe, that's back to, do we do a 3-year contract while we find this out, but we do have the 30-day out. I guess I would like some more, I would like that investigated more. There's a way to pull numbers. I'm like looking at sales tax.
Well, I guess we could say sales tax and property taxes, because if we're talking new construction, that's an increase on our revenue. Those are the types of numbers, how much of an increase are we getting? Because that's what our economic development is for. We want to see the increase on the sales tax, but also if it's new construction, we should see that property tax increase. That's part of what we're thinking on, especially if we're talking about manufacturing, industrial. Those are key elements that are big ticket items for us. We want to see those types. And obviously, I know we can't see the individuals on sales tax, but if it's quarterly or biannually, that at least gives us some data that we can look at, but we can't look at it individually.
Yes.
It's got to be clustered so that we can't tell the difference,
I would be happy, like you went down these and you knew what you could find if you know the sales tax and just gave a lump sum.
Yeah, the lump sum would be fine.
I don't know if that's possible, if you have that information available.
It would take some effort. I'm confident in saying that it's more than the contract value annually in sales tax, just with some of the large names that are on there. Property tax is certainly greatly, the expansion of the skills factory. I mean, 1 year property taxes for us is, large dollar amount. So some of it's being abated for a few years, 4 years. Sales tax, I probably could go through an aggregate on an annual basis. I'd have to actually see how many of these are sales tax generated currently. The law says that I can't do, small groups as close to those dollar amounts, but I mean, it would be over $100,000 easy.
But another thing you have to factor in is jobs. Because you look at that Business Insider thing they put on Facebook, those 100 new jobs at Wrigley, all good paying jobs. That spend money here, build homes here, send their kids to school here, pay taxes here. I mean, it's a lot of different things you have to really quantify to see what we're getting. Yes, sir.
The other thing is, too, you probably need to think about what empty buildings you have and what new tenants have moved in, because I know over by us, Fountain Village, I think there's one open, after this, near future, there'll only be one open spot there.
Right.
And that's something that's been, for 10 years, it's been sitting empty. Majority.
Just played paintball with my kid and 10 of his friends on Sunday. I didn't know Fox Valley paintball was coming until I read the report.
You know what would be great? Grocery store on the south side of the city.
I was just gonna go there.
That just
Yep.
came to me now.
Nice to have like
Not like I've
Subway
never
back
thought of
too.
that before. Just saying, Len. A grocery store on the south side of the city.
I think this discussion is good because in committee, this, no offense to the committee members, this was, flushed over in less than 10 minutes. And, this discussion wasn't had. This is what I want to get to is we need some data that really supports it. Lynn, I'm not picking on you, but we have to look at this, and that's my point, is we have to look at what are we spending our money on. I mean, I'm questioning $7,000 on a police car that is not in the budget right now. That's the whole point of us looking at these numbers and making sure we're doing what's right for the community. I don't want to pick on you, but we need to make sure that whatever we're doing is generating the best that we can for the city. And, if we execute this contract, I know we have an out, but we still need to look and maybe do some more research, because I will say I was disappointed staff hadn't presented any other considerations or any thoughts on how we could expand it. I know I brought it up this weekend in our planning session that, hey, let's look at if we can expand this. When we hired retail coach for the south side for their grocer, they hosted a website. It had all the properties listed. It had the statistics on each one of them. That was up there through that entire timeline while we were trying to solicit. Those are the kind of things that let's try to do more.
And what did the retail coach get us done? I mean, you need more rooftops.
Yeah, they need more rooftops for the grocery store.
But the results that we received, if you go through the list of all the contacts that they made, we received a lot of information at the end. Lynn's, I understand that you have to keep a lot of things kind of confidential because you're in negotiation, but once they were done, they handed over a report that said this is every single person that we have contacted, what they have actually said to us about the discussion. And since that point, we've had several individuals or businesses that have said, hey, maybe we'll consider a restaurant, or not a restaurant, a grocer down there. And they've all kind of fallen through, and we haven't been able to hit that target. But it's about having the data out there, having the information, and trying to do more with less.
What year did we do that? Wasn't that like
13, 14?
14? So, the economy's changed too, and we do have more rooftops on the south side. Maybe something could change over there.
There are no more permits available in Wyndham.
Yeah, there's full.
Well, K-Hall now is getting started, so that's good.
And you got the new development in Prescott.
Yep. So we need rooftops for the grocery store. One of the things that when I work with the grocers that I had down there that were interested, when 47 got widened, and you can get across town in about 6.5 minutes, and you have 3 grocery stores, 34 and 47, that was just, we really do have 3 grocery stores. We have Jewel, we have Aldi, and Supertarget are closer grocery. So, the dilemma is as much as we want it, if you are a business owner and you're looking to make this investment, that's a decision that someone has to make. And while we would love to see it, we understand, I live on the south side of the river as well, that we would love to see a grocery store. Walgreens sort of acts like a convenience store in many ways. But until there is a number of more homes, then you can see the support for a grocery store. Because you can get across town in 6 minutes.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
Well, and you can
Or you get stuck for 20 minutes by the railroad tracks.
You
can't put your forever to get across.
People in 6 to 8 minutes to go from 4771 to like 34, 47, 34.
6 minutes to get to the north side, 20 minutes to get back.
Right.
And it never does journey.
Okay. Anything else on this? I think more information is good. It's a good conversation to have with the EDC. I don't think there's any reason to hold up this contract. Like it's been mentioned, there is an out. Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Milczewski,
Aye.
Coke,
Aye.
Butcher,
Aye.
Raiders. Aye. Turles,
Aye.
Paulson,
Aye.
Hawkesworth.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, I'll turn it over to Alderman Milczewski for Administration Committee report.
Oh, I guess I do.
You get the fun one.
I get a fun one. I'm happy about this one. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the staff to issue a request for proposals for the sale of the old jail.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions, please? Yes, sir.
I do have 4 non-substantive changes to the RFP. One, putting in there that it would be clear that tours are available for contractors and residents. That was an informational item that was recommended by Landmarks Illinois after packets were approved. 2, to actually give credit in the RFP to the citizens group and Landmarks Illinois for helping with multiple drafts of the document, providing information. So I thanked them in the memo, but I didn't put it in the actual RFP, so I'm going to do that. 3, clarification, there's a footnote at the end of the document that's got contact information for somebody in the state of Illinois to talk about incentives. Clarification that that contact is for the state and federal tax credits, not the TIF incentives. So we would then add in a staff member to be the TIF incentive contact. And then 4, I had a placeholder for a website on the front page, which we'll update. But there was also a what year placeholder.
Yeah, I had that, yeah.
That year is 1992, so we will add that in afterwards. So as long as everybody's okay with the rest of the document, I'll just make those changes.
Yes, sir.
Just one question on here, and under project assistance, it says the city seeks self-sustaining commercial or residential development. Is that, I wouldn't want that to be interpreted as it's either or, if somebody wanted a mixed use on that one. You know, the word or infers one or the other.
Is that on the first page?
It is on the second page of the RFP, under public assistance, first line.
And or, okay. Okay, or in there.
I just want to make sure that we're not limiting anything.
Anyone else? Roll call.
I just had a quick comment. Just so I'm clear, the deadline is in March for this. So if we do get a proposal that's acceptable to the city, which I doubt, I'm a skeptic on this one, but if we do, say in December or January, we can't do anything with it till March, correct? Because I mean, the RFP has to stay open until the deadline we establish.
That is correct.
So I'm just pointing out that we are painting ourselves into a, we must wait till March corner, even if tomorrow somebody shows up with a bag full of cash saying, I want the old jail, we'll say, great, see you in March.
Yeah, Andrew may be able to opine, but I would think that if that happened, somebody made a public overture that you wanted to explore, you would simply close and reject all bids currently, or close it when the period is up and then reject all bids at that time. So I don't think it prevents you from entertaining it, but I think the intent is certainly to see if we can foster competitive competitiveness between a couple of people that would be interested in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you can entertain it, but the bid should stay open.
Right, and that's my point. My point is we are basically telling ourselves at this point, nothing will happen until March, one way or the other.
Right. And I think the rationale that I had behind extending that timeline was in order to have a decent amount of time for any potential developer to really thoroughly go through funding opportunities, contacting the state, contacting the feds, talking to us, working through actual development scenarios and not trying to rush this. We want to make sure that there was enough time because we know how it can be trying to get through the hurdles of discussing this with the state, looking at the tax options. We didn't want it to be rushed and short-sighted. We wanted it to be thorough and fully vetted. So that's the rationale behind that extended window, so that it's out there in order to get the best opportunities.
Bart, wasn't that also a recommendation from Landmarks Illinois to extend it?
Yeah, they said, the longer it's open, the better proposals you should receive.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Cook.
Aye.
Butcher.
Aye.
Peters.
Aye.
Torres.
Aye.
Colosimo. Aye.
Aye.
Funkasser.
Aye.
Machuski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, nothing from Park Board, nothing from PZC, no City Council report, City Clerk's report. Any community and liaison reports? Staff reports?
No reports?
Additional business? No executive session. Do we have any citizen comments? Anything that might be on your mind? Yes, ma'am.
Between now and March, can we at least park that roof?
We did talk about that.
Yeah, we had somebody reach out to us. We'll authorize use of the remaining funds. And there is, I think, 2 or 3 contractors that are providing either a false roof quote or potentially a rolled roof patch. So hopefully it can last in the winter. So we're in the process of trying to work that.
So keep this going up there.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? Meeting adjourned.
You dated for 4 months, right?
No,